You are currently the only person in this conference.
Now unmuted. Hi everyone, I'll be just uploading my slides here in a moment. I'm good to go.
Great. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming along, and I get to introduce Fred this time. Fred, I don't know what your role is actually within Blindside Networks, but Fred's with Blindside Networks, and they've actually been sponsoring this iMoot and providing all the Big Blue Button support and the servers and the rooms and all of that. And I've got to say, you guys have provided an outstanding service. It's been awesome, and I'm sure a lot of you have already experienced their help within the different sessions. So it's a pleasure to have you presenting today, Fred. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Shane. So hat I wear during this session is the open source hat. I am the product manager for the Big Blue Button open source project. And here also in the room with Jesus Rodrigo, who works closely with us and also has the responsibility for the Moodle integration, both 1.9 and 2.x. So it's our pleasure to kind of share with you the project, kind of an overview here, an overview of the project and an overview of the Moodle integration, what we've been working on, and the roadmap. And this is cool. So you can see both Jesus and I, or at least you can see Jesus for a second. So let me ask, has anybody here used Big Blue Button already, outside from the iMood, at a college or university, or they've used it personally? Okay, cool. So I get to kind of give you an overview of what it is. So every project kind of exists for a reason. And the reason we exist is that we believe that every student with a web browser should have access to a high-quality online learning experience. That's the goal of our project. And we intend to make that possible with Big Blue Button. There's lots of commercial applications out there for web conferencing. They're all great. Just like Moodle exists to provide an open source alternative, it's the same case with Big Blue Button. And we think there's some benefits to it. So the position that we have in the market is we really focus on distance education. And I think the last probably year, 2 years, we sort of broadened that to online learning, where it might be a commercial application rather than university or college. But the model is the same. You have students wanting to learn, you have teachers wanting to teach, and you want to make sure that the students have a high quality online learning experience. And this is also in the larger market of web conferencing, and you could certainly use Big Blue Button for generic web conferencing capabilities, but we really focus it in terms of online learning. And the use cases that we have, there are 3 of them. We think of it in terms of sort of one-to-one collaboration, small to medium size groups, so like 3 or 4 connecting, and sort of one-to-many, the traditional. So this is the traditional one. And in the absence of knowing anything about how somebody may install Big Blue Button or what server they may use, the guidance we generally give is like have sessions less than 25 users. You can have more, and you've seen that in the iMood keynotes. We were up to 60 simultaneous users. This reflects that our project is not trying to build a webinar system where you can have 300 people all in a session simultaneously. That's a different architecture. That's more of a broadcast streaming architecture, where you just have one person talking and there's one webcam and broadcasting. In Big Blue Button, you can have 20 people all sharing their webcams, all talking at the same time. So in some ways, we like to think we've solved the harder problem. And as we flesh out all the functionality we want in that area, then we'll scale up to a larger number of users. But we're not trying to build everything for everybody. This is kind of the use cases that we think about. And we have the core capabilities. And I'll just, you've seen them in the sessions if you've been in others, desktop sharing, certainly the audio, the chat, the video, and the sharing of slides. Some screenshots from other applications that uses it. This is actually from Mozilla. This was 9 people using Big Blue Button, sort of as like a video chat application. Here's another example. We're using it internally in our group, so we're sharing slides and videos. This was a picture from a developer who had integrated Big Blue Button, had used our Sakai integration with Big Blue Button, and tweeted a picture about it. And this was an example of the use of Big Blue Button recently here in Canada, where Food Services Canada was getting a presentation. This gentleman was in Geneva, and these are groups that are around Canada, and they were basically listening and asking questions. So more like almost like an auditorium type example. But it's still the one-to-many, right? One teacher presenting, but again, more collaborative than you would otherwise expect in a streaming scenario. And there's another example of 12 people talking simultaneously. So Big Blue Button is an open source project. I always want to give credit to the other projects that we build on top of. The reason that we exist, 2 in particular, is Red 5, which is an open source implementation of Adobe Flash Media Server. As you see, the client in Big Blue Button, the front end is Flash-based, written in ActionScript. And for real-time access for broadcasting from webcams, from audio and video on Mac Unix PCs, Flash is the best game in town. But there are certainly things that are moving towards mobile and non-Flash environments. And I'll talk about that later on in terms of our roadmap. And then FreeSwitch is the open source implementation of a soft switch, a phone switch. This is what's handling the audio as well. So there is commercial support available for Big Blue Button. A number of companies offer it. I encourage you, if you're looking for support, to just click on the link, or not click on the link, but go to the bigbluebutton.org website. You'll see the support link there, and you can see a number of companies listed. Like Moodle, we want to have a very healthy ecosystem of companies providing support. Some statistics about the project. It's been Big Blue Button has been in active development now for 4.5 years. We have a developer mailing list that has lots of posts on it, almost 1,500 posts. Sorry, 1,500 members now on the mailing list. I think it's just slightly out of date. And certainly over 15,000 messages over the last 4.5 years. We got into the Google Summer of Code in 2010, where Google paid for 2 students to work on Big Blue Button. And there were 79 applicants to those 2 slots. And we've been forked over 1,000 times on GitHub. So there is an active developer community around. The project is localized into 35 languages. Mozilla has been a really big supporter of Big Blue Button. They have a program, an accelerator program from open source projects called WebForward. And Big Blue Button is the only open source project with a money-back guarantee. If you can't install Big Blue Button in 30 minutes or less, we give you your money back. Anthony, good question. We actually didn't apply for the Google Summer of Code 2013. There are a number of people and a number of students working on Big Blue Button now at Seneca College, at University in Brazil. There's a university in Brazil. We were kind of maxed out, so we really wanted to just finish up what we were doing for this release. And you know, we've got a lot of people who have worked on Big Blue Button for a long period of time, so we kind of went really heads down. Lots of activity from the project. So we look at the Big Blue Button.org websites. This is taken from Google Analytics over the past 2 years. Lots of visitors that visit the website, and you can kind of see where they're coming from around the world. A bit more statistics. Let's see here. All right. So lots of good stuff going on, some of the recent events. No, I just had to restart my browser. We just want to prove to you that this is open source software and that we're constantly testing and improving it. So I just noticed that it was getting really sluggish. So I just restarted my browser and I'm right back. And honestly, that's what we tell everybody, right? Don't panic, just things aren't working well, just restart and you can be brought right back into the session. So we were recently in Vancouver at the Canada Moodle Moot. There's Martin. It was a chance for me to meet him for the first time. So the Canada Moodle Moot, we broadcasted that online in February. And this was a panel session that was being done. It was talking about online learning. And the cool thing was they were actually giving preference to people remotely. This is Big Blue Button. People who are contributing remotely and asking questions remotely. There was a case study recently of Big Blue Button at the University of West Scotland, where this is Darren Ricketts, so they did a trial and deployment of Big Blue Button. This actually won an commendation award for the case study from JISC, but there's a video online that you can see. Other LMSs are integrating with Big Blue Button, so Docebo recently integrated with Big Blue Button as well. And we were at the Kansas City Hack Fest doing some hacking with HTML5 and WebRTC. Mozilla's been a big supporter of Big Blue Button. So they've had a project called the Mozilla Ignite Challenge, where they had provided some funding to projects that were moving the web and advancing it in certain areas. Education was one of them. So the Big Blue Button project has received a number of rounds of funding, and we've used that to put into the development and kind of bring some of the developers together. And some kind of cool tweets. This was a tweet that was recently at the New Zealand Moodle Moot, where the keynote speaker sort of said the spectrum of bad, okay, good. And that was Microsoft, Google, Big Blue Button. It's kind of neat. So let me talk about the Moodle integration. So we want to be really complementary to Moodle. So Moodle provides a lot of the non-real-time parts, and we want to provide that real-time experience, which is exactly what we're doing now. Some of the requirements for Big Blue Button Server, it's on Ubuntu 10.04, 32-bit. We recommend 4 cores, CPU, at least 4 gig of memory, probably half a terabyte or a terabyte hard disk for recordings. Lots of good instructions online on how to do it. If you're techie, you should be able to set it up yourself. And there's companies and the community can certainly help out. Once you do set up a Big Blue Button server, so there's 2 servers at play, a Moodle server and a Big Blue Button server. You would get some information from the Big Blue Button server, which is the URL and the shared secret for doing API calls. This is what you're going to put into Moodle. And the Moodle, there's actually 2 modules that you would integrate into Moodle. There's one that would create activity links in the course, so that will let you create sessions in Big Blue Button. It's integrated to groups, Moodle calendars, there's functionalities like requiring that students wait until the moderator joins, and then there's the recording of the session as well. And then there's another activity module that is doing the recordings. So Moodle Rooms is owned by Blackboard, and Blackboard has a competing product called Blackboard Collaborate. Also, Moodle Rooms requires that you pay for validation of any plugins. So as an open source project, we work on creating the integrations, both with Big Blue Button and Moodle. And look, should a Moodle Rooms customer want to use Big Blue Button, they can pay for the integration costs as well, for the review of the integration. It's a couple $1,000s. And I think it would happen at some point. Our philosophy is just keep making the product better, and at some point that will probably happen. So there's lots of interest in Big Blue Button from the point of view of downloads. So this is a screenshot of a little while back, but I think the top 20 downloads in the last 12 months, Big Blue Button integration came in as number 15. That's overall the hundreds of Moodle plugins that are available. We do try to really integrate well with the whole support that Moodle provides for external modules. So we use the issue tracker for Moodle to track issues. And we also use the AMOS for the localization as well. You can download it right from the Moodle database, plugins database. And with the good work that's been going on in Moodle 2.5, you don't even have to download it. You can add it from right inside of Moodle. So once you've got the plugin ready, you can enter in the URL and shared secret for your server. There's a server that's provided by default that's always available to anyone in the community to test. And Thomas, the WordPress integration, yes. So Jesus has done the WordPress integration as well. We put a lot of work into the WordPress integration, and it's kind of neat because it allows you to really quickly create like a landing page that lets you define rooms, permissions, and access to recording for the meetings. And it's very easy, of course, to set up a WordPress site. So perhaps the positioning, the WordPress integration would allow you to create like public landing pages that anybody could go to. And if they have the password, they could actually get into rooms. Whereas the Moodle integration is behind the Moodle login. So actually I'll show you in a moment. We do the single sign-on. So once you add a link to the class, Big Blue Button link, you can put things in like the name of the classroom, a welcome message. Do you want users to open up a new window? And do they have to wait till the moderator joins? If you enable the the calendar, then this will appear in the calendar for students. So you can specify the time at which people can enter up to the point at which they can't anymore. So like the session would still go on after that end date, but it just means that students couldn't join it anymore. A lot of people, by the way, just set up a room and just say, student must wait till the moderator joins. It's really easy. That way, the room is always there. The teacher doesn't have to remember to schedule anything, but nobody gets into the room until they do. So if the class is Tuesday night and Thursday night at 7:30 to 10, just tell the students it's Tuesday night, Thursday night 7:30 to 10, and when the teacher walks in, the students can join. We, of course, record the sessions. You can set a limit for the recording that makes sure that a student doesn't linger and just kind of keep the session open. The recording starts when the first person enters and ends when the last person leaves. And the recording covers, I'll show you in a moment. So when you see the Big Blue Button activity link, I know in iMove they kind of made a nice image for it, but really all that's happening is you're clicking on an activity link. The roles are automatically assigned, so if you are a student only in the Moodle, you come in as a viewer, and if you have permissions outside of a student, you come in as a moderator. That's another screenshot of the integration. And then once you're done, this is what the recording module would look like. So if you're looking at the recordings from the past sessions, you'd see the name of it here, and you'd see the date as well. And then you'd be able to, as a teacher, you'd be able to hide the recordings or delete the recordings. Students, of course, wouldn't see that. They'd only be able to access them. And this is what the current version, I should say the current released version, we're a bit ahead with iMood, but I'll talk to you in terms of what the playback is in a moment. So let me talk about the version we've been working on for the last 11 months. We have, like Moodle, a sort of very systematic development process, and we're very close to what we call a beta release. And beta for us is we can't find any more bugs. So we've been fixing things and polishing it. The core development is finished. Probably for the last 2 months, we've been fixing and polishing, and I want to make sure that the beta goes really well and that it's a super solid release. We did 4 beta releases and 3 release candidates of the last release. We are prepared to work as long as necessary to make sure that the platform is extremely stable. And in terms of the priorities, this is our 11th release coming up. Stability is first. Lots of things have gone on in usability. For those of you that have never seen the earlier versions of Big Blue Button, there was a little bit more Windows, a little bit more UI. We really try to simplify it. We feel like if we can add more features but simplify the UI at the same time, then we're headed in the right direction for each release. Lots of work's gone into accessibility for this release as well. So I've got an overview here of the capabilities. I've got some slides for each. More capabilities in record and playback, access for students with disabilities. There's a text tool for the whiteboard, a layout manager, simpler UI in terms of less windows, and then some more techie stuff for the APIs for third-party integration. And we also support the IMS LTI as well, and we'll be going for certification. So actually, Siggy, a whiteboard is in place, but it's not a shared whiteboard. I have the whiteboard controls here, and actually this is what they look like on my screen. So I have the ability to annotate, to draw boxes, to do text, yes. So the idea of the collaborative whiteboard, and really in Big Blue Button, the appropriate term is really were annotations. If I put up a blank slide, it looks like a whiteboard, but it's really collaboratively annotating the presentation. And we've certainly heard this from others, especially for tutoring applications as well. But right now the model is the presenter is kind of the single point of control. There's 2 roles, moderator and viewer, and a moderator may make anybody presenter. So it's very presentation focused. And it just reflects how we sort of come to this point. But not too far ahead to make it collaborative, right? All the functionality is there, just make it more possible for more than one to do it. So this is just what it looks like when you draw a box, and then you can type some text into it. This is the text tool. And then we have a layout manager, so it's now possible for students to rearrange the windows. If you resize the window, it automatically refits. You can lock it as well, so I can change the layout for everybody, so you would see it modify here to, let's say if the video was more important, or if the presentation was more important, or the default as well. So again, really trying to make it easier for students to lay it out as they like, and make it easier for the teacher, if they want to have some control over it, to do so as well. And then just as an example of different layouts. And there's an example of we just had some fun. We just said, what if we just put the video doc maximized and made everything black? And then we just have a video chat application. And we can click on any one of the windows and make it bigger. So that's Jesus. We're just testing it. So the record and playback received a lot of activity. So Thomas, this version does not play back the screen share. It actually records it because we integrate with Matterhorn as well. But the record and playback processing scripts don't incorporate the screen share. So for iMood, what we'll be doing is kind of manually creating videos from all the recordings, so you'll have it. And you can expect that functionality to go into Big Blue Button in a future release. The challenge we have is there's lots of things we wanted to do for record and playback, but we just couldn't do it all in a release. Otherwise, we never release. So our philosophy is always try to do the highest value things first, and then we'll just simply build on top of it. So the record and playback, this is what iMood is actually using, is supporting the webcams, the chat area, all the activity and presentation window, all my strokes like this will be played back, and a thumbnail of slides. And the desktop sharing and anything else we add to the interface will come in a future release. What will be the maximum limit of video web streams? There's no hard-coded limit. So if you have sufficient bandwidth, you can have 12 people sharing webcams. You can have 20 people sharing webcams. It just depends on your bandwidth. So if you, I would turn the question around and ask how many do you need, and then probably try to provision a server appropriately. So the desktop sharing is in Big Blue Button. So you can certainly share your desktop if you want to, and other people have done it as well. So if I want to share my desktop, should be able to see it here in a moment. I'll turn my Skype off. So here you can see my desktop. If I show the desktop here, I can go to an application, such as TextPad, and I can start typing. Now you see it. I'm going to go back to Big Blue Button. I just close that. So Judy, actually desktop sharing is recorded. So in the Matterhorn integration, we do send video files to Matterhorn, but the record and playback scripts don't try to incorporate the desktop sharing into the playback. There's just more work to do, and there's lots of edge cases. So rather than try to do everything, we just basically focused on what you see here. But all to say is it's coming in the future. Lots of good things ahead. One of the good things was we have 2 students. Seneca College in Toronto has been working a lot on adding the accessibility to Big Blue Button. So that's if a student is unable to see the interface, they will be able to tab through it with JAWS or Screen Reader. And again, this is really important for education. Some work on the unification of the interface, again, if you've seen this for the first time. And then for the techies out there, we built a JavaScript interface. So if you embed Big Blue Button inside of a div tag, you'd be able to drive it using a JavaScript API, such as starting the webcam, muting people, injecting messages in the chat, and so on. And we have API demos for this. So Kim, if you're experienced with other open source projects, you probably know that the development is always tricky to predict. So unlike Moodle, we don't have fixed release cycles. We release on quality, not features or not dates, and we kind of already picked the features for this release. So after we finish this release, after we're done, then we kind of look at what's the highest priority things for the next release. So I won't presuppose it, but we certainly do our best to meet all the requirements of the community. And another, so going back to the developer side, this one is actually of really interest to developers as well. Big Blue Button is getting integrated into a lot of third-party applications, so the ability to dynamically specify the layout, the configuration for each user was something that we've had requested for like 2 years. We finally got it in, so it provides kind of like an API for a developer to say, I want this user to start up with this configuration. There's a file called config.xml that actually specifies the layout and lots of the properties that you see in front of you here in your interface. We'll now be able to let people do this on a user-by-user basis. And we support LTI integration as well. So if you have an LMS that supports LTI, which is basically all of them, you can now launch into Big Blue Button as well. And we've done a lot of work in the UI, which you've seen in front of you here. Very happy with a lot of the UI updates we were able to get in. Put a lot of effort into just polishing it. I would say you could test the latest build, but you actually are in the iMood. This is what we're using, is the latest build of the development build for Big Blue Button, what we call 0.81, which is our 11th release. So we found a few small things which we're fixing. So in many ways, the participation in iMood is actually helping us advance the open source project. And we appreciate your patience with any glitches or anything that you've seen along the way. So the roadmap. So things that we have in the future is certainly full support for record and playback of all activity. And there's lots of activities, including desktop sharing. There's lots of activities that people have been asking us to put into Big Blue Button, such as synchronized video playback. So I would like to control the playback of the video, just like I'm controlling the view of the slides. One of the things we try, one of the propositions we have in Big Blue Button, or the promises, is that you never have to ask students, can you see what I'm looking at? Or can you see what I'm pointing at? So it will be always in sync. So if you zoom in, everybody's going to see the dot is right above the T. Like, you never have to ask them. So we want the same thing for synchronized video playback. So if you're playing back a video file and you stop at a frame or advance to a frame, we don't want people to say, asking students, can you see what I'm looking at? They should see exactly the same. Lots of good work has actually gone into a polling module. It's not ready yet for this release, but you can definitely look forward to seeing it in another release. Shared notes as well. So we did a prototype of this about 2 years ago, and there's been some work that's gone on to it. We definitely want to get a shared notes module into Big Blue Button, and with breakout rooms as well. The challenge with these is they all have a cascade effect in terms of record and playback. So if you start doing polling, you're going to expect to see polling and record and playback. Shared notes as well. So we want to make sure that we kind of bring up to sync the record and playback with the functionality that's in Big Blue Button. But again, we've been doing it in phrases. Yeah, so you can do it simultaneously. So if you remember a few moments ago when I opened up the screen sharing, it just opened up as a new window. You could literally have 2 monitors, and Big Blue Button could be showing part of the screen on monitor 2, and you have your slide on monitor 1. Heck, you can even log into Big Blue Button twice and just have 2 sessions set up. Very flexible. But the answer is yes, Thomas, you can. Richard, this is a very technical question. So I actually do the packaging for Big Blue Button. And so we've been packaging for Ubuntu 10.04. For this release, there were a lot of changes that we made. We just didn't want to try to do a platform shift. 10.04 is a long-term support release, so it should serve you well for the years to come, next 2 years or so at least. And certainly we have it as an issue for a subsequent release to update the packaging to 12.04. So you can expect that, and we will do that. And there's a bunch of smaller things, maybe not so small for some, like full screen support. We want to be able to just, if you want to see just the presentation area and nothing else, kind of like the PowerPoint experience, to make the screen full screen. Support for right to left languages. And Judy, yeah, the uploading of slides in advance. So that's a design decision on the server. Big Blue Button is designed more like a web server. You don't have to tell a web server, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I need you to serve this file. The web server just serves the file upon request. It makes the architecture of the web server simpler. There's no request database for web servers. They just serve up pages as they go. In a similar manner, there's no user database in Big Blue Button. There's no request database. There's no database of uploaded files. There's nothing that needs to be propagated or maintained as we go through version to version. So we kind of looked at it and we said, well, if we make it stateless so that, Big Blue Button doesn't know anything about your users, doesn't know anything about a presentation until the meeting starts, and it's all driven by the API. When the meeting's done, it forgets everything except the stuff that it needs to record, to record and play back. it makes the architecture a lot more simple. So I don't think we're going to be supporting pre-uploading of slides, or another way we've heard it phrased is persistent rooms. Can I have rooms that are like persistent across many days? There are use cases for that. We're not saying they're not valid or anything, but I think it's a diminishing return for us in the open source project. The effort it would take to support it would actually slow up the development in a lot of other areas. And kind of concluded that, you know, some of the other things people have been asking for have a higher priority than a persistent room or pre-uploading of slides in advance. Some things for the whiteboard, drawing mathematical symbols, and shared drawing, there it is. So, you know, we definitely know people are looking for it. And we want to do some more usability improvements too, such as a pre-flight checklist or maybe like a system check. This one, I think we're going to look at doing sooner than later, but, you know, if you're a presenter, is there a page that you could just go to that it says, you know, your bandwidth is good, your version of Java is good, assuming you need desktop sharing, and you only need Java if you're going to do desktop sharing. But just kind of go through a list of things to kind of check your environment out. Most of the times it just works, but if there's troubleshooting, it's good to have some sort of place you can go to kind of get more statistics. So two things we've been doing in parallel is the work on an HTML5 client and the support for the web real-time collaboration. This is the ability for a web browser to make an audio and video stream, send an audio video stream, and receive it without using Flash. No plugins. And then a bit future ahead is the native clients, so like a native iOS or Android client. Moodle kind of went down this road and created native clients and found that it's actually much better to do HTML5 clients. This is what we're doing first. But if you want to do two-way audio and video on like an iPad, which we'll call it a closed environment in some respects, it's not going to be possible through HTML until Apple supports WebRTC, and they may or may not. But all to say is we're going to do these things, and then we're definitely going to, if necessary, do a native Android or iOS client. But let me show you what we can do if you've got an iPad, or we'll be able to do shortly. So for the HTML5 client, this is somebody who can hit a web page, join a Big Blue Button session, no Flash. So it can be from a mobile device, iPad, iPhone, whatever. We're going to do this in phases. The first phase would be you would be able to be like a viewer. So you'd see the presentation. Again, you'd see me doing all this. You'd see the webcam of the current presenter, and you'd hear the audio. So you can be a participant by your viewing the session live, and you can do two-way chat. The next phase after this would be to leverage what WebRTC is going to provide for real-time communication, audio and video. And the third would be an HTML5 interface to make a full implementation of all the capabilities of Big Blue Button. So that would be the whiteboard, the presentation, uploading slides, the whole bit. But you know, by redefining the problem to be just a viewer client, we're able to kind of focus on what we think is the broadest use case and the broadest benefit with the least amount of technology challenges we have to overcome. And Anthony, yes, the ENCOMP project has done an Android client. So ENCOMP is a group in Brazil, a university in Brazil, that is using Big Blue Button and has done a lot of good work on it and contributed a lot back. You'll see lots of posts on our blog about it. They did an Android client. They've been working on it for 2 years. And it kind of shows the challenges of doing a native client, which is why we didn't try to do a native client ourselves, which is we want to go for the HTML5 client. Because if you just pick the functionality right, you can actually do quite a lot in HTML5. And here we're trying to say, we're not trying to implement the broadcast of audio and video, but if we just let people subscribe and see it, like most of the folks here in this session, you're really just chatting. You know, you're not expected to or anticipating the need to share your webcam or microphone. Yeah, so Sue, we haven't done much with the Android client. I would recommend going to the MConf project, take a look at their documentation. They have a mailing list as well, and they can certainly help you out. But we work very closely with the MConf team. One of their guys, Felipe Segagno, is a committer to Big Blue Button, has done the layout module, which we're very much all benefiting from, and a bunch of other pieces. So they're a really good group of guys. And that's, again, as an open source project, nothing made us more happier than seeing other groups start to pitch in and help with the development of Big Blue Button, because you know that everybody wins. I think we would have capability with Chromebooks? Yes. So let me show you a few more slides here. This is the UI design that we've done. So these are design slides. I'll show you what the prototype looks like. What the UI might look like on an iPad or just an HTML5 interface. So all you see was a presentation area, like just make it as simple as possible. And if you show some more control at the top, you can see who's online, see the chat, see the webcam, and so on. And here's what the design would look like if you want to see the current presenter. There's the chat, there's a presentation area. So this is actually the second gen of design, and it's just more like a progressive design. It just gets progressively more capable as time goes on. Carrie, yes. So polling and collaborative editing or collaborative whiteboard is on the roadmap for sure. If you go to the bigbluebutton.org website, you can get then to our Google Code site where lots of the technical information is. There's a document there for the roadmap that we have. And I've kind of summarized it here, but you can definitely see all the details. And polling module and a shared whiteboard is on the roadmap. And here's again just a little bit more, showing more of the UI. In this case, I'm wanting to see who's online. We kind of figured out after a while, you really don't need to see this information unless you really click to see it. You don't need to take up the space in the screen for it. So here's a screenshot from the prototype. So this is a screenshot I did a while back. This shows the users logged in. So you don't care whether they're logged into an HTML5 client or a Flash client. And it's good to emphasize this. We're not trying to replace the Flash client. We're doubling down on the effort to improve the Flash client and make sure it's super solid. What we're doing is offering an additional entry point into a Big Blue Button session. So whether you're on Flash or an HTML5 client, you can participate and see each other. And so basically, if I was presenting and there was another 10 people here on the list, and they happen to be from HTML5, I wouldn't have to ask you, are you on an HTML5 client? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you see what I'm pointing at? That promise we make that you never have to ask users, can you see what I'm pointing at, propagates right through the HTML5 client. So along that line, here's a screenshot of the Flash client. Right here I am drawing and moving the mouse around, and here's the HTML5 client. Same presentation, the drawing, and the mouse movement as well. There's actually a little gap here. We actually fixed that bug since this release, since this slide was taken. But the idea is that you could present, and there'd be lots of users, and they could be on a Flash. They could be in a browser with Flash. It could be in a browser without Flash. It could be on a mobile device. And it could be on an iPad as well. So here's a prototype of the Big Blue Button interface running on an iPad. So I think that's as far as I want to go. There's more technical stuff, say on the WebRTC, which is really just providing really high quality audio and video for within inside a browser environment. Again, no need for Flash. So our first goal is the streaming client for an HTML5. So you could see the teacher, hear the teacher, see the presentation, do two-way chat, and then add the back and forth with WebRTC as well. And there's some technical challenges to that, but nothing that we don't think we can overcome. One of the brief comments I'll make on WebRTC is if you know of it, it's a lot of times it's geared towards peer-to-peer collaboration. So 2 or 3 browsers are all connected to. It's like Skype. However, that model doesn't work because we need to record what goes on in a session. We need to record everything that goes on so it can be played back later on. So for us, the architecture for WebRTC would necessarily be a server-based architecture where all the streams are going to a server and broadcast out. But we prototyped this. There's more work ahead, but you can see at least where we're headed. So in summary, going back to our original goal, our mission is that we believe every student with a web browser should have access to a high-quality online learning experience. We intend to make that possible with Big Blue Button. And if you're looking for more information, there's various points of entry into the project. I welcome you to go to our website. You can join our mailing list. You can follow what we're doing. Thanks, Anthony. This is what I wanted to present. If any questions, just please go ahead and ask them. Samara, I'm going to read you for a second here. So Shalimar, they're probably able to do that because they downloaded and installed a native application. So they've had you run some code on your Mac or Windows machine. Probably wasn't be supported on Unix. Big Blue Button runs inside of a web browser. You didn't have to install anything. So by definition, there's a sandbox that we run inside of. It's a pretty good sandbox, but the sandbox doesn't let us know what the student is doing in other browser tabs, or even if the browser tab is active or not. So we wouldn't be able to do that. That would be an application where probably you would need to do some, a downloadable application to get that information. That's good to hear, Siggy. We don't test on the Android tablet. Our focus is, on the desktop. Lots of good things ahead for the mobile. You can see us working in the HTML5 interface. We do know that some tablets support Flash environments. We do know that there's some browsers that will try to make Flash run on the tablets. We don't test on them, so we can't give any guidance on them, but we kind of figured if we just focus on doing what we're doing now is the best we can, it'll have the biggest impact on the community. Yeah, okay. So the video does not work on the Android tablet. Yes, okay. Well, we don't test on it, so we wouldn't know whether it works or not. We think that we can kind of do a better job through the HTML5 interface, and then we can test that. That's an easier job in many ways than trying to write native clients, but it also has the broadest use case, especially for streaming to a larger number of users. Maybe we can get it up to a higher number of users because the HTML5 clients, at least in the first release, are going to be streaming clients. And there's very good tools, open source tools for streaming. Lots of good questions here, folks. So yeah, happy to hang on for a few more minutes. And I think I've got another presentation as well that will get another time slot. Lots of good questions. As I just await a few more moments, but I hope after this you got a better appreciation. If you want to, the best thing you can do for the project would really just be to, post or tweet or blog about your experiences with it. We are developers. We enjoy the feedback. Our goal is not marketing. Our goal is to build a product that other people find useful, and hopefully they, give us positive reviews on it. But we would love to hear any feedback. So far, so good. Thanks, Siggy. So Erica, a brief comment on the Moodle Rooms. They don't just put in any plugin. They do require a review process before they do put plugins. They have a high degree of quality. Moodle Rooms, as you know, has been acquired by Blackboard. We haven't had any Moodle Rooms customers yet come to us to say they want the integration and have been able to, there's just money that's required to go through the authentication. So rather than as an open source project, we kind of reach into our pockets and pay Moodle Rooms for the integration. I think we're better served by just putting that effort into improving Big Blue Button. And if we do, we think at some point the Moodle Rooms customers will probably want to get together and come up with the funding that it requires to get the plugin authenticated or reviewed. I've actually gone through the process of reviewing and getting Moodle plugins integrated with other projects with Moodle Rooms, so I kind of know the process well. So we think if we keep improving Big Blue Button, we'll get there. Thanks a lot, Judy. And Erica, it already has an approved plugin. If there's an approved Big Blue Button plugin for Moodle Rooms, I wasn't aware of it. Please send me a link. I think we're good, Shane.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say thank you very much on behalf of the whole iMoot team for your presentation today, and I'm pretty sure we all got something out of that. I could see Twitter going as well. So awesome. Thank you very much, Fred.
My pleasure, everyone. Take care. Bye.